The room went silent as Jonathan Hayes, billionaire CEO of Hayes Development, slammed his hand down on the table, frustration written all over his face. "I don't care how much it costs," he barked at the three men seated before him. "I need the best architect in the country for this project. And so far, every one of you has failed me." The wealthy patrons of Romano's fine dining, accustomed to quiet sophistication, now witnessed a scene that would change everything. Margaret Chen stood frozen, a coffee pot trembling slightly in her hands. She had been serving coffee and clearing plates at this restaurant for years, blending seamlessly into the background, invisible to everyone. But tonight, everything was different. As she made her way through the crowded dining room, she couldn't help but overhear the conversation at table 12. Jonathan Hayes, a man known for building entire neighborhoods and massive office complexes, seemed to be unraveling before her eyes. Where are you watching from tonight? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories. Jonathan's voice carried across the room, making Margaret's heart ache as he spoke of the new museum project that had consumed him. "This isn't just any building. It's a tribute to Elena, my late wife. She spent her life teaching art to children, and this museum is meant to reflect her spirit. But the designs I'm seeing—" He waved a hand dismissively, knocking over a stack of architectural plans. "They're soulless. They don't understand what I want, what Elena wanted." Margaret, still hovering nearby, paused, her gaze fixed on the papers strewn across the table. The designs were indeed lacking. No natural light, cramped gallery spaces, a disconnect from the outside world. Margaret's mind, though, immediately raced back to her own dreams. Dreams she had buried long ago. Dreams she had almost forgotten were there. Jonathan had been a regular here at Romano's, his usual calm demeanor completely absent tonight. The years of his wealth and success had not dulled the edge of grief. His wife had passed 2 years ago, and the city had been buzzing with news of his plans to honor her memory by building a world-class art museum. But as Margaret glanced at the plans, she realized that none of these big-shot architects understood Elena's vision. They didn't see what Margaret had seen when Elena had dined here, a woman whose love for art was only matched by her love for others. Suddenly, Margaret was no longer just a waitress. She was a woman who once dreamed of creating spaces where art and people could truly connect. But the years had gone by, the years spent caring for her family, helping her late husband with his struggling restaurant, and raising their daughter Sarah. The plans on the table now felt like a betrayal of everything Margaret had once believed in. Her hands shook as she refilled Jonathan's coffee cup. She didn't want to look at the designs, but her eyes betrayed her, glancing over them one last time. She knew she could do better, and yet she remained silent. Who was she to say anything? Just a waitress, an invisible part of the restaurant, serving meals to the wealthy and powerful without ever being noticed. Jonathan's voice interrupted her thoughts. "I need the best, the one who understands beauty, not just a building. This project means everything to me." His voice wavered with emotion, and for a moment Margaret saw a glimpse of the man behind the CEO, a man grieving, trying to live up to his wife's legacy. The same man who had been so gracious to her and others in the past. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her as she retreated to the kitchen. She knew her chance had passed. There was no way she could offer anything of value here. Still, a small voice inside her urged her to speak up. And then, as if the universe had conspired for one more shot, Rosa, the kitchen manager, touched her shoulder. "Table 12 is asking for you." Margaret's stomach sank. What could she have possibly done wrong? She smoothed her apron and walked back out, only to find Jonathan holding up one of the architectural drawings with disgust. "This is garbage," he said, tossing it aside with a flick of his wrist. "I need a fresh perspective." His tired eyes met hers, and for a moment he softened. "I'm sorry I snapped at you earlier. I didn't mean it." Margaret, who had long kept her emotions buried, spoke softly. "I understand, sir.
Losing someone you love, it's never easy." Jonathan paused, then leaned in closer. "You sound like you speak from experience." Margaret's heart caught in her throat. Her husband had passed away 4 years ago, and in the years that followed, she'd buried her own dreams under layers of responsibility. She'd sacrificed everything for the restaurant, for her daughter, and for a future she never got to live. But now, standing before Jonathan, a small spark of the person she used to be began to reignite. "Yes," Margaret whispered. "My husband passed 4 years ago. He had big dreams, too. Dreams that never quite came to fruition." She swallowed hard, the words heavy in her chest. The silence at the table was palpable. Jonathan stared at her, as if he could see the buried woman behind the apron. "What would you do?" he asked, a challenge hanging in the air. "If you were designing this museum, what would you do differently?" Margaret's heart raced. Was this the moment? The moment she could finally speak the truth? She glanced at the architectural drawings, then at the napkin in front of her. She could feel the weight of her past lifting just a little. As if an invisible barrier had shattered, Margaret's voice grew stronger with every word. "I'd start by changing the entrance," she said, tracing the napkin with a pen. "A museum isn't just a building. It's a place where people can come together. It needs to be welcoming, not intimidating." Jonathan's eyes narrowed as he listened intently. "Go on," he encouraged. "The design needs to breathe," Margaret continued, her hands moving as if they were on autopilot. "There needs to be natural light, rooms that flow into one another, a space where visitors can discover art in an unexpected way. The whole building should be a journey." Jonathan leaned forward, his full attention on her. "You know a lot about architecture," he said quietly. Margaret hesitated, then whispered, "I was an architect once. MIT class of 2002, summa cum laude." The words felt strange on her tongue, but there they were, the truth at last. A stunned silence followed. Then Jonathan asked, "What happened?" Margaret's confession spilled out, the sacrifice for her family, the dreams left behind, the promises made and broken. But as she spoke, she realized that her love for architecture had never truly faded. It had simply been waiting for the right moment to resurface. Jonathan leaned back in his chair. "Show me," he said, pulling a napkin across the table. "Show me what Elena's museum should look like." Margaret's heart hammered in her chest. She picked up the pen, her hand shaking, and began to sketch. It wasn't much, just a few simple lines, sweeping curves and natural light. But with each stroke, she felt herself coming alive again. Her dormant creativity rushed to the surface. And in those first few lines, she saw the beginning of something beautiful. Jonathan studied the napkin, his eyes widening in awe. "This is it," he whispered. "This is what Elena would have wanted." Margaret could hardly believe what she was hearing. She had just stepped into a new chapter of her life, one that had been waiting for years. What would you do if you were given the chance to pursue your dreams, no matter your age or past? Let us know in the comments. 6 months later, Margaret stood at the construction site of Elena Hayes Community Art Museum. The curved walls and expansive glass atrium were beginning to take shape, and her vision was becoming a reality. Every beam, every stone was part of the dream she had almost forgotten. Jonathan approached her, a proud smile on his face. "The city council called," he said. "They want to feature your story in the paper. They're calling it a masterpiece." Margaret couldn't help but laugh, still amazed by the whirlwind her life had become. "Still getting used to being called an architect again," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Your daughter called this morning. She's proud of you. The whole family is flying in for the opening." Margaret's heart swelled with emotion. Her daughter, Sarah, had never known her mother as an architect. But now, Sarah would see the woman who had fought for her dreams, no matter how long it had taken. As the sun set behind the museum, Margaret reflected on everything she had accomplished: the designs, the struggles, and the joy of creating something that would outlive her. Elena Hayes's legacy would live on, and Margaret's second act was just beginning.